I've had an identity crisis after becoming Muslim. Psych! That's what people want me to say. But in reality, think about this. People think that after becoming Muslim that you're going to lose yourself, right? All of the things, the character that I thought I was before is completely changed and blah, blah, blah. I think this is completely false. And in reality, I think what's actually going on is that we're all kind of performing for something, right? We're all performing for something in this life. And what I realize is that the thing with Islam is that you're performing with intention. Let me explain it. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what is going on in my mind with everything around me. So I wrote down some notes right here that I'm going to kind of reference. So basically, like, what I'm saying is, what if Islam is when you actually find yourself? So I think the first thing we have to do is we define what identity even is. And after some dedicated research, I found that there's kind of three different ideas of identity. There's the identity of self-expression, which is like all of the choices that you make in life. It comes from like a feeling or wants, desires. Who do I want to be? Who's this character I want to be in the future? And how do I mold this character? If I want to be an actor, comes from a feeling of something, like I want to be this person, right? Then there's like the identity of culture, which is something that you can't really choose that, right? That's like who your parents are, where they came from, where you live, your expectations, right? Your roles. What does your family need you to do, right? As a job, what do you need to do, I guess? This comes from culture, and this is part of like an identity. Oh, what color skin am I? How do people act with my color skin? This type of thing, right? But again, both of these two things, they change with emotion and they change with experiences and an environment. The other thing is influences, right? So as I'm living my life, what influences do I have, right? Like my childhood is probably one of the most important things that develop my character or my identity. Friends, social media, or just media in general that we're consuming, and your successes, your wins and your losses. So if all of these things shape your character, then who even really are you? Did you choose this? Or was this already chosen through either fate or through accident, right? Like all of these experiences that I've lived, I didn't necessarily choose to live this exact way. I didn't choose these experiences in my life. They just happened to me. So is this my identity? Is this my character? Did I choose this, or was it just fate? Either way, if it's just accidental, is it even intentional, right? I didn't necessarily choose my childhood. I didn't choose where my parents brought me on vacation. I didn't choose all the media that I consumed. It was just put in front of me and I consumed it, right? Sometimes you go out and you search for your own, right? But for the most part, like a lot of this identity that we think of has just been given to us. But even the choices that we make, like there's too many choices and that can cause anxiety. So it's like, are we choosing, again, for a performance of other people, or are we performing, what are we performing for? So identity is basically built off of intention, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. That doesn't necessarily mean it's your true identity, right? If you believe in God, whether you're religious or not, but if you believe in a creator of the universe, which is the most logical explanation, right, and that everything is determined, or the way that you identify yourself, is that the true identity of who you are? Essentially, if this is true, then your experiences don't necessarily change who you are at your core. They just filter you in a calculated way, whether it's a good filter or a bad filter. But they're gonna filter in different directions, right? All of the experiences and things that we come across, they're gonna filter us in some way or another. But who we are at our core, it's not our name that we were given, right? It's not, again, the experiences we have. It's not our duties. It's not our culture. It's not our skin color. It's none of these things. It's our probably something within our spirit, within our heart, right? That we didn't necessarily choose, that was given to us by God. And through these experiences, types of character traits or identities that we would come to is pain, right? Filtered in a negative way, could come out to be an ego that we create. Validation could then become pride, right? If we're constantly seeking for validation, right? Or if we're constantly getting validated through our experiences, that could come out to pride if it's not intentional. Culture, right? Filtered could become bias. And then social media and the media that we consume and the media that we put out could become performance, right? We could be performing for other people, for our friends, all of this stuff. Essentially, through all of these experiences, through all of the culture, right? The identity that we create is an edited version of ourself. Because if our character is foundationally created for us, right? The same way as a child, we were given certain DNA, our character was too. Out of this, like, to the person you've become to this point, has become edited in some way. So now we get to the whole idea of identity crisis, what a lot of people have asked me about. As a revert, what kind of identity crises have I gone through? And the answer is none. I haven't had some, and some reverts have even told me that they've had that. Right now, I want to think I'm built different or something. Might not be true. Maybe I will experience that at some point, but I haven't so far. So I think what identity crisis is it's not asking yourself or telling yourself, I don't know who I am. But what it is it's realizing that who I am, or who I thought was me, who I thought was my identity, was influenced, filtered, and changed. It was distorted from the character that I truly was, that I was born to be. So we're all built off of these layers, right? If we're built off of the experiences and the culture and the influences, right? Then these are all layers that we've created for ourselves, like a piece of baklava. At its foundation, right? These layers could be like toxic layers that we built for ourselves. We're all performing in some way. We're all creating these layers in some way. The difference between having a foundation like Islam, right, which I'll get to why it's the greatest foundation for identity, right, is because with Islam you're still performing, but you're performing intentionally. You're performing for the sake of Allah, not for other people, not for your job, not for this character, for who you want to be, right? Not necessarily. The reason why I say Islam is the greatest foundation to build a character off of, right? To build your identity off of, essentially, is because it's not a replacement of who you are, but rather it's a purification of who you are. It's a purification of all this rust that has grown over your heart. It's a purification for the character that has been distorted through evil, toxic things in this world. So, like I said before, when you're not being intentional about your experiences, pain could turn into ego, right? Validation could turn into praise, right? Or needing praise, which could in turn turn into insecurity, probably. Now with Islam, pain actually turns into, when you experience pain in this life with the foundation of Islam, pain turns into patience. Success no longer turns into pride, it turns into gratitude. Your desires then turn into discipline. Because again, like, you know that everything you want is given to you by Allah. It's your rizq. It's a gift. So again, why Islam is the greatest foundation? Islam is unchanged. Islam at its core is who we are. Right? There was at one point where I talked about Nietzsche having this philosophy of like the Ubermensch, the one who creates his own philosophy, and it's like the lamb, the lion, and the child. The lamb, or like the sheep or the rat, right, just follows. It's the rat race. The lion is the one who completely rejects it, but he rejects it out of like masculinity, right? Out of hate. But then he just like goes opposite on the spectrum. And then the child is the one who tries to return to its own core. Islam already gives you all of this. It's no longer performance, it's following, right? It's already given to us. The Quran is unchanged, and the Quran is our truth, right? That's where we get our truth from. Sujood is submission, right? We become, we submit to the Creator, to God, to Allah, right? Dua is our realignment to who we are. right? Dua is almost like manifestation, right? Is an understanding of who we are, is trying to reach ourself at our core. So I think that my biggest takeaway is realigning my identity as a whole. Not changing my identity, but realigning who I am at its core, realizing that we're all performing for something. Again, friends, jobs, culture, all this other stuff. But when you perform for the sake of Allah, it opens your mind, bro. I swear, like you just have all the answers. It's a cheat code to life. So, Allahu Akbar. God is greater. And seek truth. We're truth maxing out here. Assalamu alaikum to everybody. Peace be with you all. And again, truth max. Search. Dig deep within yourself.